I've heard things more than seen them, I suppose, because in California, we're not as close to our neighbors.
How did you prepare yourself to play a character with agoraphobia?
Well, I found the book really helpful in speaking to Anna's sort of internal conflict. I read a lot about agoraphobia, watched a lot of interviews, but the thing that ultimately helped me into Anna was sort of doing research on trauma and the way that that can affect fear and anxiety. And so that's sort of where I we spoke to a psychotherapist who spoke on trauma and spoke on sort of a manifestation of anxiety disorders. And so that was, but ultimately I had a wonderful rehearsal period with Joe and with the rest of the cast, and we were able to find our way into the story.
You have been several movie and TV show adaptations of books, short stories, and graphic novels, such as The Woman in the Window, Arrival, and Sharp Objects. How do you approach it? Do you read the books before shooting them?
Yes, I always read the books. I typically, if I get a script and I haven't yet read the book, I focus on the script and kind of visit the book as a reference. But it's always nice to have that, and to understand sort of from which the character was born. But ultimately, I return to the script. I do love hearing the author's internal dialogue that the character has. In Sharp Objects, that was really important because she's such a reactive character. So I like to absorb everything I can.
I really like that the narrative makes us think there are two sides and we can tell which is the right one. I also felt like the scenes in the first act were meant to leave the audience confused and maybe even distressed. Is that right? And how did you build that atmosphere up?
I think that's absolutely right. I was dealing with a situation in my own life in which there were two stories, two versions of events, and one was being perceived as correct and the other wasn't. So in a way, that was one of the inherent impulses of the film. How I created that atmosphere, I don't know. Filmmaking is interesting. It's brick by brick, every day, every choice, every color, every sound. It's not one thing. It's a million small choices, and you make this choice and that choice and that choice, and then you like bricks, and then you stand back and you look at this building that you've created, and it either is beautiful or it isn't. It works or it doesn't. So it's difficult to talk about a kind of central, overreaching concept. But certainly color played a large part of that, and sound as well. I love the use of sound. I love working with sound. I love music, and I'm always seeing the films as soundscapes, and the music, the effects, the dialogue are all part of the same thing. I try not to sort of separate them or categorize them. The dialogue can be music, and the music can speak words.
Have you ever seen something unusual while looking outside your window?
I've heard things more than seen them, I suppose, because in California, we're not as close to our neighbors. So I've heard a lot.
When I was a child, we had this big tenement block opposite my house, and I used to sit. I was one of those kids who sat at the window and stared out the window for many, many hours at a time. There was a woman who lived in an apartment opposite, and one day I saw her climb out on her windowsill in an attempt to commit suicide, and I said, "What are you doing?" I was about 6 or so. I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "I'm going to kill myself. Go back inside." So I said, "Well, don't come and have a cup of tea with me." And she went, "All right then." And she came in our house and had a cup of tea, and I saved her from killing herself.
It's amazing.
Oh my gosh.
She might have done it like a week later, but that night she didn't.
No, it's amazing.
If you can send a quick kiss to Brazil, Amy, please.
Mwah.